Thank you, Diego. So here we are with the Liferay datasets Mission Possible. This is Mission Possible because last year, this time in Budapest, this was a beta feature, and we were about to release, and we released at the beginning of the year. So that was possible, and all the year with a lot of requirements from other teams. And here we are to show you all the evolution of the dataset. Last year, we used also this slide because I want to give you some context on what is a dataset, and that hasn't changed. A dataset is a structured collection of data that have two users. The admin user that is going to build the experience for the end users, and the admin user will select will compatible headless API is the source of the data, and also will manage and choose content and tooling for the end users. We'll choose different visualizations, filters, actions that then the end user is going to visualize and interact with using the tooling provided for the end user. And this is built over Liferay objects. As Gabriel was explaining downstairs a while ago, is using also root model, so all the permissions from the object definition of the dataset are inherit to the children. So this is how it looks, the dataset manager, the place where the admin user is creating the experience for the end users. This is the first part of the dataset. This is how the end user sees the dataset. In this case, we are seeing the CMS dataset, the file section, and also the categorization section, all built with datasets. We will see it better. So what has been the evolution of this year? Last year, we presented at the end of the talk the system datasets. System datasets is something that we have been thinking to customize your admin experiences. During the whole year, many teams from Liferay have been including the dataset in their experiences, like the content management, page management, commerce, putting datasets there to bring experiences. And those datasets are not created with the dataset manager. Those datasets are written in code. So how we do to customize these datasets that are not in the dataset manager? So that's the system datasets. So when those datasets that are written in Java or the React code, they implement some interfaces, they become available in this model. So when you go to system datasets, you will see all the list of datasets that has those interfaces, and you can customize them. For the example, we are using the CMS all section dataset, imagining that we are a news agency. So imagine that we go to the model, we create the all section, and the first we saw when we created is the details tab. We have the name and description of the dataset, the application, the endpoint that we are using. We could put there some optional parameters for the request. And here starts the magic. You see all the fields that you bring from the code to the dataset manager. And in blue, we have marked 3 different fields because imagine that Luis, this morning in the demo about the CMS, he was creating new structures. So imagine that the new structure has some new fields like this field that we created, the rights for the rights of the file being Creative Commons or whatever, the priority because maybe we want to set a priority to be reviewed by the field, or put a image in the table visualization. Also, we can edit the labels, the fields that we already had, changing the field renderer or editing the label if we want the header to look something different. If we go to the list visualization, that is something that is not by default in the all section, we can enable it, just mapping some fields there, and it will become available. Also, we are bringing all the created filters in the code. We are bringing it to the dataset manager. Some of the imported filters are editable, some are not. That's because all the business logic that is in code is not always suitable to be modified in the UI. So that are not editable, but you can activate it or deactivate it, reorder it, so you can play with them even if you cannot edit them. And we, of course, can add new filters or edit the date filters, for example, updating the name, updating preselected values. Also, we can add sorting options. In the all section, we are relying in the table header, we have this sorting button, but creating sorting options in this way will be available in all three visualizations, in cards and lists as well, in a drop-down. And as the actions, you can reorder, deactivate some of them, so you can play with the whole experience. And the same for the actions. The actions are not editable again, but you can get rid of the ones you don't need, reorder, or add an action, for example, like this one that I created for the example, set an item as top priority, and that will do a headless request and send a body to change the priority to 10. So we can add new actions. So this is how the CMS all section is shown as default in original. And after all these changes, this is how you see it in place. So we have this sorted drop down, we have a new visualization in the list, we have a new action there to set the priority, and we have the new fields available. So in this way, news agency or any other use case that you can imagine, you can adapt what are you seeing in the experience to your use case. And what happens if we don't want, we are playing with the customization and we want to deactivate it? We don't need to get rid of it and delete it. We can deactivate it, all our changes will be there saved, and we can activate it later when you want. Okay, more evolution about the datasets. This is the search and filter UI that has been revamped. Now we have this search summary where we have the query there that can be deleted by clicking in the index, also providing the results found. So we wanted to give more transparency in the search experience to the user to know what he's searching for and what he's applying. And also we have revamped the no results scenario. Now when you search for something and you get no results, or you filter, in this case by a date that has no result, the no results button and the message gives you some clue on why you are not seeing results. It's because you have filters or you have search. So let's say that the no results is aware of the context and the reason of the no results. Another thing that we have been talking is the is the config the state in the URL. That is something that I particularly like because it's saving time and avoiding frustration of the user. Because the situation for this feature would be like, imagine that you arrive to the all section or any other data set and you search for something and you filter for another thing, and then you go and edit a file. And then you go back in browser history and go to the data set. All the things that you did there are stored in the URL. So when you go back to the data set, you will see the same situation that you have before you left. So this is saving the way and avoiding that you have to reapply all the filters and everything. So what we are saving in the URL? We are saving the visible columns because we can hide and show columns in the data set, the pagination size, filtering and sorting, of course, the search query, and also the visualization mode. So in this way, you can also share the URL with another user, and you will be sure that when you share the URL, they are going to see the data set in the same way you are seeing it, with the same filters, search, and everything. And last, I would like to highlight that there is a new selection pattern. The pattern of the dataset is that clicking on the checkboxes, you are accessing the multi-select way of selecting things. But now, from now on, clicking on the item body, just in the row or the card, or if you are in the other visualization, you are doing single select. And this is very useful when you combine it with the info panel that we have on the right. So it allows the user to rapidly see the different previews of the different documents, and we will keep iterating this to enable keyboard to do the same and make a faster experience. And I think now it's time for Danny to do some demo.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Welcome to the practical part of this talk. Here we'll do some demonstration of the feature that Gerardo has been describing, and for that I need to go here. I think this screen is becoming familiar to you because of the many presentations we've shown it. This is the famous CMS, and I'm going to focus on the all section. And the reason is that all section is using a dataset which has been recently turned into a system dataset, which means that we can tweak it using the dataset manager. But as you can imagine, the all section dataset has a vast amount of code in it. So we are kind of doing some magic, which I will try to reveal to you in this talk, to make it possible to customize it. So this is the base visualizations, meaning that that's the all section as it comes by default. Okay. So first, before moving on to the dataset, I have to tell you that I've changed in the basic document content structure, or file structure in this case. I've added a couple of fields called rights and review status. Those are multi-select fields taken from a pick list. I hope all this is more or less familiar to you guys. I will go over that if you have questions later on. Okay, so I created some content here in the DevCon space, and I added some information. So this is the default state of the dataset because the all section system dataset, which you can see here, is inactive. Okay, so if I activate it, then once I access to the page, and remember, this is an out-of-the-box admin experience. It's not a custom page. It's something belonging to the core UI of the Liferay. Okay, you will get the modified experience as you use the dataset manager to change it. So here we are in a new tab, System Datasets, and we have the all sections. I'm going to go through it a little bit. We have, as Gerardo said, the main parameters of the source of information. In this case, it's a search endpoint, as you can see here. We are combining a lot of different search results into the same page. And then we have the different visualization mode. The table section comes here already imported. I have added a couple of fields, and I want also to display the fields in a specific order, right? I also created a list visualization by mapping the title to the document title and the description field to the description field in the item. And then we have some filters. As Gerardo said, these are system filters. I will go over that later on. And that means that I can just reorder them and turn it on or off as I wish. So I decided that I don't need to filter by extension in my UI because I don't need that functionality. And as well, I don't need to filter by display date. Okay. And I've also added a couple of sorts by creation and modified date. I will explain later why this is useful. But basically, it has to do with visualizations that don't have rows in the arrows in the column headers. And then I also created an action because, you know, we imported actions here, but I created one called enqueue, and I will go over it quickly. If I edit it, it's a headless action, meaning we are going to attack to a given endpoint provided by the item. And that endpoint is going to do quite a few things. Actually, it's going to update the item with this part of the request body where I am setting the new value for the review status field, which is the one gets generated when I added the field in the structure of a basic document. And then I'm going to exercise the update action. When you get an item, if you take a look to the returned data by the endpoints, you will see there is a section handling all the actions there. And there, that section about actions has an entry per action available for that item according to the available permissions for the current user. And then one of it is update. So I basically telling the dataset to grab that update URL and make a patch against it with that body. Okay? And if everything goes well, I'm going to display item was queued. Okay? So I think it's time to turn the dataset on and then reload this page to see what's happening. Okay, now see slightly different things. First, I see the writes and review status columns. This is preloaded already when I created the content. So you can see that now I have an order, and then I can change the order by, let's say, creation date descending. And then all this is a new interaction that is available not by writing any line of code. Okay, the original code for the old dataset didn't have that. We are adding it on top of it. And then you can also check that there is a new, well, if you go to the filter, you would see that there are some missing ones. There's a lot of them, but I removed 2 of them. They won't be rendered. You can also play with the order you want to display them. And then there is a list visualization as well, which wasn't present in the original experience. There you go, with the mappings I created. And finally, I would like to show that there is an action called enqueue. As you can see, I've exercised it before this moment. So if you click on enqueue, you will change the status of this item, and you will get the success value you described in the action. So as you can see, you can modify the default experience without dropping any single line of code, okay? By leveraging what's already out of the box. That's the concept of system dataset, okay? Okay, I would say that's mostly it from the perspective of the demo. So I'm going to keep working on the presentation by showing to you how it works, okay? So let me put this into presentation again. Okay, that's not the one I want. Oh, I revealed a small secret. Okay, that's the one I like. Okay, so basically, it all started with a typical product engineering conversation like this. I have Gerardo here, so you can start if you want.
Yeah, the thing is that when we created the datasets, everything was manageable from the dataset manager, and was a little bit frustrating knowing that we had a lot of datasets across the XP that were not manageable. So my thing to Danny was how we can customize these datasets, because it's going to be useful. And Danny said,
yeah, that's not possible. All of it is code. I mean, we have Java code, we have React code, we have a complex framework in it, intertwined to render everything. So I think that's not possible.
But for product, everything is possible.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's still code, but yeah, maybe we can do something.
Yeah, we said, how we bring it?
Let us think a little bit. Okay, so basically, the main problem we had is the absolute disparity between 2 separate mechanisms to render the same thing. We had old, traditional datasets, which weren't called like that in the past. Indeed, commerce people started implementing them. And then we have this new thing. So I'm going to show this disparity with this table. So in the past, when it all started, we had the code-based datasets. Basically, the main use case for them was all the XP UI interfaces that allow users to manage things. Let's say roles, let's say users, let's say CMS contents, let's say products in commerce, whatever was subject to be used or rendered through a dataset. So the target audience for these datasets, in terms of creating them, were the developers who implemented them using a mix of things. I'm going to develop that idea later on. So in order to change anything, if a requirement changed from product, then the way to configure the dataset is to write code or change existing code. So in the front-end part, we had 2 basic mechanisms. The first is the action item URL token interpolation, which is basically that any action for an item can take the item data and put it in several placeholders we can declare in curly braces. Okay? And we have a thing called props transformer. If I have time, I will explain a little bit about that in the end. And then at the back end, we implemented the dataset using OGI components. That's basically it. And tag clips. And this is from 2021. So a little bit later, we added the custom dataset. And you will see a bunch of differences here. First, it's meant to use cases for content created by our users or our content administrators, not by us as developers. That's the first big change. So the target audience is content admins or maybe portal admins. The way to configure it, as you have seen already in the demo, is by using the dataset manager, which is an application. It's a CRUD application against an object-based backend. Nothing to do with code. And then, in the front-end runtime, we didn't have props transformer because that's a low-level mechanism. But instead, to compensate, we added CLAN extensions. If you attended to the last year DevCon presentation, we played with the different CLAN extensions you could add, like table cell renderers or even filter CLAN extensions. And then the backend is based on object entries, fragment renderer, which is the fragment you can drop into a content page and configure it with a dataset. And that's it. And this is with us since 2023. So let me illustrate the differences in the render. This will be quite fast. A content page includes a fragment. The fragment is configured with the dataset ID. The dataset ID is used to access the object data model, which, as Gabriel said before, is based on the root model. Okay? And then we get the object entries, we calculate the markup, we return the markup to the content page, and then we got something sent to the browser with the content page with a dataset, meaning that it's not an admin UI. Okay? In turn, when we have an admin UI, we have basically a JSP. The JSP uses a tag lib. It can be headless, it can be classic display, and then passes a lot of different tag attributes. The dataset ID is used to query the OSGI registry in searching for different elements that are registered as components there. Then we got those components, we generate the markup back to the JSP, and then we send that to the browser so that you can see the admin UI with the front-end dataset in it. That's totally two separated routes. So what we did, first we introduced a middle layer in between, and we call that unified dataset rendering. We are not very original naming things, okay? So basically now we have the two separate mechanisms in the beginning, but we have a middle layer called FDS renderer. That renderer is basically told to render a dataset, and it is implementing a common interface, a Java API to do this, okay? So basically what we do here is to differentiate between the subcomponent able to serialize the system dataset and the one able to serialize the custom dataset, okay? And then each one of those serializers goes to the original backends. They get the data they need, and they send back to the renderer in form of React properties. And then that is sent back to the whoever called us, and then we get the pages. Okay? Well, this is great. I have a few important things to say here. First is that both tag and fragment are able to render any dataset. No, we can treat a code-based dataset like if it was a system dataset. So the manager will try to render the custom if it exists, and if not, it will render the system. That is why I can disable the custom, the system dataset, and things still work. You cannot delete a system dataset. It will always render anything, okay? So I'm going to be faster here. Things will be managed transparently here. And the last part we have is the dataset importer. Because, okay, this is great, but it is not related. There are still two separate things. So we have the system dataset importer in charge of doing something similar as the renderer, but in this case, it turns a list of components into object entries representing the dataset, right? So we introduced the notion of proxy for some cases where the dynamism of the OGI way of doing things is preferred over the static representation of the entries in the object backend, okay? So thanks to the proxy concept, we are able to render dynamic actions that can calculate the URL on the fly, even if you are in the system dataset and you are in the scenario of editing the experience through the dataset manager. So we are running out of time, so I will basically say that there is a third category we started this year, 2025, called system dataset, which joins the both worlds, the best of both worlds, by enabling use case for administration, but we target both audiences. We have the possibility of writing code and also configure it using the dataset manager. We have everything. We can have client extensions, can have props transformer, and we have also the entire backend in our hands. Okay, so because we are running out of time, I will leave that to the questions section if you have. But basically, I was going to make a deal with you guys. In case you have a system dataset, you only have to implement 3 interfaces to make it a system dataset. I would say there's a deal here, okay? So I'm not going to go into the details for those interfaces, but they basically represent the different missing concepts that were not present in the OGI registry. So now we can take everything and turn that into object entries, okay? So I will conclude here. We have some extra slides, but I will pass them to give the word to Gerardo. In case you have some doubts about this part, because it is code, I can show you on the machine if you are curious, and also I can explain to you what the import policies mean, which is a low-level detail, okay? And also, the part I'm not going to cover at all is the props transformer, which is that notion I told before about accessing the low-level APIs for the FDS. That allows us, for example, to enable the action customizations, allows us to enable many things, like tweaking action rendering, define action click behavior, integrating the info panels, enable file drop, which is also something we want in the CMS. So I have some snippets of code to showcase to you how all those things work, but because it's not so technical talk and we are running out of time, I'm going to skip that part to the question section, or you can ping me whenever you find me if you are curious about this. So Gerardo, please go ahead with the next steps.
Yeah, it's just 1 minute. The basic steps was about telling you about the roadmap, but again, you can contact us. Maybe the most important thing is the composable datasets, because now you know that the dataset is a block that you cannot put different parts in different places. So we are thinking how to put filters there and sets there and make a composable experience with the same power of management from the dataset manager. And that's it. Don't want to go further. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I hope you enjoyed.